This reminds me of a comment I just got. This comment I'm thinking of was on my last video with the Plymouth Prowler. And if we scroll down to the comments, yeah, this comment here, the one right below my merch shelf there, don't even think I should try to pronounce this. What is that? La Toro Alberola, maybe. Sorry if I abused your name, but basically saying amazed how much the channel and the shop have grown versus 8 years ago, about when I started the channel. And yeah, things have changed dramatically, as he mentioned, not only in the shop, but also the types of cars and the video and sound quality. So today, what the, God dang it, which I've invested in over the time. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you know it now, but we've been doing this in 1080p for the last several months now, as a matter of fact, now upgrading even still. The much better camera work, probably a reference to Vicky, the videographer who will help in this video, because we don't want to take any chances with this Corvette. That thing is beautiful. But yeah, comparing what we have in the garage today versus what I've had over the years past with cars. So let's see here. Wow, rad whip, bro. But it does have a Pioneer stereo in it. All right. Nice. There was an overwhelming odor in this car. And the conditions I was working in, man, my garage is so crowded all the time. I really need to figure out how to do something about that someday. Yeah, I would say we're stepping up pretty good. So thanks for noticing that. Do you know how frustrating it is? Every single video I do always has some crappy car in it. This is a 2006 Hummer H3. I've never even seen one of these up close before. This is amazing. You know you're moving up in the world when your customers are giving you Hummers. 2020 BMW X2. All right, so this car is, as you can see, a really nice and a little bit customized Corvette convertible. Looks like a 2008, I believe. It is a LT2, 400 horsepower, 6-liter engine. A little underpowered for Corvette by today's standards for sure, but still a really awesome ride, 6-speed manual. And it has a check engine light on, and I don't know what the check engine light is for, and in this case I don't care. Normally I validate that the check engine light is going to be a good video before I start the camera rolling, but I don't care. This car makes it a good video. I know when I see a really nice car come into the garage, I get more excited. I really do. Just like nice cars, but also I just like the fact that it's kind of a testament to your credibility that people trust you with their really prized possessions. This guy did insist that he will only bring the car to me if I can promise it will stay in the garage from the time it comes in till I fix it and he picks it up. So he's very proud of this car. It is, to me, kind of an honor to know that he trusts me with this car. And like I said, all I know is it has a check engine light. So what we're going to do is hand the camera over to videographer Vicky, and she will look over my shoulder while I go ahead and try to diagnose what the check engine light is for. All right, normally I wouldn't even pop the hood until I get my data from the check engine light, but obviously it goes without saying. Oh, the hood opens in reverse. How freaking cool. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, so this is good and bad, by the way. We see that there's a lot of customization on the engine here. Mostly it's just dress-up stuff. It doesn't look like I see any performance related. And also, I knew that the engine was going to be worth looking at. The guy said that he took his chrome valve covers off for me to make things easier, assuming I would have to access the engine. Kind of wish he left them on, just to see what it looked like, but you can see that he's got this pretty dressed up with chrome. The reason this is good and bad, it's obviously super cool, but also anytime I see any kind of modifications to an engine, that always sets off my alarms when you have a check engine light, because almost always it's that your modifications to increase horsepower or whatever people tried to do kind of backfired, and they just didn't work out so well. So we're going to keep that in mind as we go ahead and look at our scan tool data. Okay, I think we're going to start off with enhanced powertrain just to get more data. All right, we're just going to check the current status. That'll be the check engine light. The car only has like 13,000 miles. I highly doubt we've got a lot of problems. And also with 13,000 miles, I'm thinking this will be an issue with whatever the guy's customization is. And we see we've got P0171 and 0174 system lean. So we've got lean codes. Typically on most scan tools, these codes will say oxygen sensor lean bank 1 or oxygen sensor lean bank 2. And of course, everybody's going to put an O2 sensor in them. We want to see, is this an O2 sensor problem, or is this that the O2 sensor is reporting an issue? And I can clearly see the O2 sensors are not the problem. It's reporting a lean issue, and as a matter of fact, I can tell just from the freeze frame that pulled up what is wrong with this car, and hopefully you can too. Vicki, can you focus in on this area here? All right, give you a second to look at this, and if you can't tell that this is clearly evidence of a vacuum leak, then what you need to do is stop this video, and I will put a link to my fuel trims video, and it will clearly explain why this is evidencing a vacuum leak. And you will want to watch that video, because everything that we do in this video is going to be right off that 8-year-old video, which is still relevant today. And we are going to basically do exactly what is in that video to conclusively prove this is a vacuum leak. But as a brief review for those of you guys that already know, just to validate your thinking, we've got a calculated load at 15% with an engine RPM of 651. This car is at idle. It's also evidenced with the 0 vehicle speed and the ignition timing. So we can clearly see this is a car at idle, but look at our long-term fuel trims, 24.18 on both banks. The fact we have both banks lit up, that is clearly indicating this is a whole engine problem. So I am going to be thinking of variables that would cause a vacuum leak affecting the entire engine, not just one bank. The other reason we know that this isn't the oxygen sensors, our short-term fuel trims are essentially zeroed. So there is no reason to even check the oxygen sensors. They clearly work. Think about it. How can the short-term fuel trim possibly be zeroed unless the oxygen sensors are functioning? Think about it. It's impossible. We don't even need to consider oxygen sensors. This is going to be a vacuum leak. So what we need to do now is let's get some live data right now. Okay, we've got the car running, and we can see we clearly have duplicated the freeze frame issue. Our problem is still live. We've got really high fuel trims here, and on the long term and the short term is zeroed pretty much. So the long term has locked in at, I'm not sure why it's a little bit lower on this bank right now. May still be getting a little bit of adjustment there. But anyway, we look at it, our fuel trims are really high. It looks like we just got another adjustment here on the short term again. So we definitely have this issue happening. Now, is this a vacuum leak? In order to show that, let's put this in graph mode. And I'm going to reconfigure these amplitudes on all of these to get maximum sensitivity. So we've got our long terms pretty much pegged up at 24 and our short terms hovering closer to 0, except for my, now they're actually a little bit above 0. So right now we've got a condition where we're still adjusting fuel trim right now. So our total trim is over 30. It looks like we have a little drop out there. That just happens with auto ingenuity. But what we want to do now is curve this against RPM. And when we see the fuel trims drop down to about 0, which I anticipate they will, That'll be our confirmation of a vacuum leak, so let me go do that. Right now I'm 80% sure this is a vacuum leak. We're about to be 100%. That's a vacuum leak right there. Look at our long terms drop. It also looks like doing this somehow fixed our issue temporarily. Now our short terms are coming back up. Let me do that again. I'm just stepping on the gas pedal. And look at how our long terms drop. That is classic, right out of the book, literally out of the book by Dr. Raymond Kamar, which we're going to be releasing this year, by the way. It's coming. That is a vacuum leak, 100%. Now it's just a matter of where it is. I'm going to go ahead and turn off this car. First thing I'm going to do to protect this guy's prized possession, we're going to cover with some fender covers. Don't normally do this on cars, but this car really is absolutely immaculate. All right, so as you know, I've got several ways that I would find this vacuum leak. Everything from using a propane canister and running around with propane around the intake and vacuum lines and things. Another way that I'll do it is using like starting fluid or brake clean and spraying around the engine. That I am not going to do on this car, because with all the carbon fiber and chrome that he has, he obviously keeps this engine immaculately clean. I don't want to do anything that's going to mess that up and mar the finishes up and things like that. So we're not going to do that. The propane would be acceptable, but also I want to do the smoke machine for another reason, and that is this right here. That is this device that I promised my friends over at Autoline Pro. You remember the previous instrument that I showed, the smoke machine, that was under $200 or so, that I showed a little over a year ago. This is their new model, their new redesigned model. The beauty of this is that it is a completely self-contained unit. It is battery operated. The pump is built in. You can see it instantly produces smoke. The thing I love about this, no more connecting up to the car's battery anymore with the wires, especially if I'm doing evap and I'm in the back of the car and maybe the wires aren't long enough on a big truck or something like that. This is totally, completely portable and self-contained. The other thing you'll notice, if you remember the old Autoline Pro model, the Shop Pro series, now we have a flow gauge as well to help detect any vacuum leaks and the degree of the leak as well. So we're going to set this up on, and I'm going to show another trick too here. All right, now normally we put this into a vacuum to the intake manifold, and I typically like to use the brake booster, but I'm going to show you a better way, and that is because sometimes it won't, I don't believe, be on this model, but sometimes you can have a brake booster leak and you miss that brake booster leak because you've went in through the brake booster hose. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use another tool, and we're going to go in through the throttle here, right in front of the throttle body. So let me grab a screwdriver. This car also has some decorative caps right there. If you watched the last video, these are not Mike's Hard Lemonade caps. This is a better way of doing it. Remember, any vacuum leaks only matter after the mass airflow sensor. If you had a vacuum leak ahead of the mass airflow sensor would catch it, so it wouldn't be a vacuum leak. So we need to go behind this mass airflow sensor here. There we go. And this I can just set aside. Some of you guys may be wondering, maybe clean the mass airflow sensor. That data clearly shows this is not a mass airflow sensor problem. It's not a dirty mass airflow sensor. This is a vacuum leak. All right, let me show you this new tool. So this is new to the channel, I believe, but not new to me. This is actually what I typically use. And what this is, it's like a blood pressure cuff. And when you close it off, I can stick this into the throttle body there. And when I pump it, it inflates to seal that snorkel. So this is great for the big trucks that have the big snorkels. Otherwise, we'd have to find a way to plug this up with some kind of big plastic cap or whatever. So I'm just going to stick this in here. You also want to be really careful if you've got an IAT or something sticking in through here that you don't damage it. Here we've just got a PCV that isn't really running into the snorkel all that much. I'm going to inflate this up. Seal up that opening. Now you notice we got this other hose here. This hose is for the smoke machine to fit in. And now we're adding smoke into the system while completely sealing everything. We also get to measure the brake booster this way as well. Plus, to be honest with you, it's actually quicker. All right, that feels pretty sealed up right there. Let's turn on our smoke machine and go look for this leak. And I am not seeing anything around the intake. One thing, on these particular cars, I'm very familiar with these LS engines. It's a very similar engine to what I have in my own car, my Trans Am. And a very common leak point is underneath the intake manifold between the two cylinder heads in the valley there. And you have to kind of look, and on this car it's hard to do, but you need to look in that valley. Sometimes using your camera phone may help. But even then, sometimes you'll see it coming up through the front or the very back, and I don't see it, but I do now. I found the leak. The leak is right here. It's actually the brake booster. Vicky, can you see the smoke in the camera? Okay, so this is our leak. Let's take a closer look at this because now I see what happened, and it's exactly what I said at the beginning of the video. This is our issue right here. This booster hose can't be pushed in to the grommet because the decorative chrome cover here pushes this out almost about 3/8 of an inch, I would say. The grommet is right in there and you can't push it in all the way. This is going to be our problem. It looks like he also missed this clamp on the hose too. So let me fix that real quick and we'll be right back, and I'm going to show you this is going to fix this car. All right, so what I've done here is I've just added a little extension onto the hose so that, actually onto the fitting, so that it fits into that grommet past the decorative chrome here, which now I've got fingerprints all over, so I have to polish that up. But this is going to fix the car, and now what we can do is, again, use our fuel trims, and we're going to see this car is fixed because our short-term trims are going to go negative to now correct that we no longer have the excess air entering the engine. So we'll have to get our leak detection stuff out of the way here, reconnect up this car to run it, and this car is going to be fixed. It's that simple. All right, we're going to go back up to our scan tool here. Let me make sure we capture this. So I'm going to turn the ignition to on, and we see we've got our data here. I just want to point this out real quick. Notice with just the ignition on, engine not running, long term is memorized, but short term is 0. Why is that? That's because, again, the short term is a live correction when the engine is running, but the engine isn't running. But the long term is what the PCM uses by default when we run the engine, because that's the learned value from the short term. That's why we've retained our long term settings with key on, engine off, but not the short term. When we turn this car on, the car is again going to go right to the long term setting because it still thinks there's a fuel issue, that the car is running lean. But it's no longer going to do it because I fixed it. That means our oxygen sensors are going to run rich because we've added more fuel to compensate for the issue, but now the issue is gone. So we're going to be running rich in that case, and if I get a chance, I may show the oxygen sensors to prove that. With the oxygen sensors running rich, the short term is now going to go negative to correct that, and it's going to correct it well within range that this car is fixed. So let's watch that happen in real time. see we have this car fixed now. Fuel trims are going negative. All right, here's our fuel trims going way negative. It's off the screen because I only set to -10. This is pulling our long trims down. Okay, you can see we've already pulled down below 12 now. We're below 10 on bank 2, which anything plus or minus 10 I'm going to be happy with. Right now, we definitely don't have check engine light code. We're still a little bit negative on average on these trims, -2 and -3. So these are still going to come down a few points. But the bottom line is this car is fixed. All right, nice catch. Seeing that right there. Here's another correction. There goes our fuel trims again. Now down around 5%. That's perfect. This car's fixed.